Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. Today I'm going to talk about Jeff Sessions' confirmation hearing. And before I do so, I want to just take time out to salute all those who testified against Jeff Sessions' confirmation. I want to salute NAACP President Cornell William Brooks. I want to salute Congressman and civil rights icon John Lewis. I want to salute U.S. Senator Cory Booker. I want to salute the representatives from the ACLU and from women's groups and other groups for speaking out against this confirmation, because Jeff Sessions is not worthy to be U.S. Attorney General. He is not fit to be the primary person responsible for enforcing civil rights in this country. This man has an atrocious record when it comes to civil rights. And for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to focus on voting rights. This man, after the Supreme Court ruled in a disastrous way, after they struck down key elements of the Voting Rights Act, this man, Jeff Sessions, said that that was a good thing for the South. And I'm talking about the Shelby County versus Holder case. In that case, the Supreme Court struck down Section 4B of the Voting Rights Act, a provision that determines the formula that will be used to determine which states are subjected to preclearance, which jurisdictions are subjected to preclearance. And preclearance was a measure that was put in place designed to protect the voting rights of African Americans and other groups. That section required states and jurisdictions with a long history of discriminating against African American voters to go through preclearance before they could pass any kind of laws changing voting rights or affecting voting. They had to go through preclearance because of their history of discriminating against African Americans, because of that history. These are states and jurisdictions that had a history of poll taxes, states and jurisdictions that had a history of having literacy tests, had a history of denying African Americans the right to vote. Those states were subjected to preclearance. And that created a situation where groups were not forced to expend resources investigating complaints and responding to voting rights complaints after the fact. It was a measure designed to be protective and preventive, to be proactive instead of reactive. And now we no longer have that protection. After that protection was taken away, you had these states and jurisdictions with a history of discrimination against black voters, going back to implementing discriminatory measures, implementing voter ID laws designed to suppress the black vote in places like Texas, in places like North Carolina, and other places. Implementing those kind of laws. Implementing the laws like what happened in North Carolina, where they had a strict voter ID law. Despite knowing all the adverse effects of their law, they still implemented. They cut back on early voting. They got rid of same-day voter registration. They got rid of pre-voter registration for those who were 16 or 17 trying to register to vote. They got rid of out-of-precinct voting. And before they did this, they knew that it would have an adverse and disproportionate impact on black communities, but they went ahead with it anyway. We look at what happened in Texas, where they set up a system to prevent Hispanics from being a political majority on a council. And that law was later struck down by federal courts. But yet people like Jeff Sessions want to believe that there is no longer a need for Section 5 and 4 of the Voting Rights Act. This man actually had the nerve, had the gall to say that that decision was a good thing a good thing when we see that right after that decision, you had these racist southern states that used to be subjected to preclearance rush and try to implement laws that were designed to suppress black voters. Laws designed to suppress black voters. This man, in addition to this atrocious recent history of supporting voter ID laws that suppress black votes in the name of trying to prevent voter fraud, which is practically non-existent. In-person voter fraud is so rare, you have a better chance of being struck by lightning than to have people actually come into a polling place impersonating someone else. So how in the hell are we going to entrust a man who has an atrocious record when it comes to voting rights to be the chief person responsible for enforcing voter rights? How can we expect that? I mean, how can any rational person want to put such a man in charge of enforcing voting rights? So I encourage each and every one of you to contact your senator and urge them to vote against confirmation of Jeff Sessions as Attorney General. I will include a link. Hopefully when I get time, I'll be able to include a link with all the contact information for the entire Senate so that you can reach out to your senators and contact them and let them know that they should not confirm this man. This man is called civil rights groups communist inspired. This man has called them un-American. Civil rights groups like the NAACP, civil rights groups like the ACLU, groups that have fought to bring about equality in this country, groups that have fought for equal rights and civil rights for all citizens in this country. But yet this man had the nerve to refer to those groups as un-American and as communist inspired. This man referred to one of his African-American colleagues as a boy. And this is the man that you people